Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I will be sharing my thoughts on...
Masturbation.
Wait, what did you just say?
Masturbation.
Okay, let's try that intro again. In this video I will be sharing my thoughts on the latest episode of Telltale's The Walking Dead game, Broken Toys. Or should I say Skybound's The Walking Dead, as they've now taken over development from Telltale? I don't really know. Let's just start the review. There will be spoilers, so consider yourselves warned. Consider yourself warned. Consider yourself warned about the spoilers. What is wrong with me? After the sad news broke last September regarding the sticky situation Telltale Games found themselves in, which eventually led to the company filing for bankruptcy in November, I never really expected to be sat here talking to you about a new episode. So that in itself is kind of amazing, and credit needs to be given for Skybound for stepping in and making the final 2 episodes of Clementine's journey a reality. However, with that in mind, this episode doesn't automatically get a free pass just because I didn't think it would ever see the light of day. Don't get me wrong, it's great to be able to play as Clem again, and I'm very happy to be given the opportunity to see her story through to the end, but that's not going to influence how I feel about this episode. Instead, I'm going to judge it in the same manner that I have done with the 2 episodes preceding it. And sadly, when all said and done, for me this episode doesn't hold a candle to the rest of the season. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. Once the initial rush of being able to play as Clem again had subsided, what I was left with was a pretty dull and dragged out installment. Even though Telltale are no longer at the helm, this felt like a classic Telltale penultimate episode, as I've often found that the company were notorious for making the episode before the last in any of their franchises into a bit of a mess. The story picks up immediately after the end of episode 2 with the troubled youth recovering from the attack from Lily's gang. I know I've said this in every review so far, but once again I was in awe with how beautiful this game is. It's like being in a living, breathing comic, and the artists responsible are clearly a very talented bunch. Anyway, in terms of pacing, the start to this episode is very slow, as is the middle, but we'll get to that a bit later. The first real set piece involves the player interrogating a captured Abel with bad cop AJ by their side. In my playthrough, Abel nearly died from smoking one puff of a cigarette, highlighting just how dangerous a habit smoking really is. Stop smoking, people.
Now that is heavenly.
Of course, with AJ at your side, not only do you need to worry about getting the answers out of Abel, but also about how your actions will affect the kid. I'll admit, because of AJ being there, I did have to think twice about my approach to Abel. Yes, I did slap him around a bit, as did AJ, the little psycho, but the only reason I didn't burn him with the cigarette or set the dog on him was because AJ was standing beside me. Similarly, when I was giving the choice to either mercy kill him or let him turn, I once again had to think about AJ. Now, I probably would have mercy killed him anyway, even if AJ wasn't there, seeing as Abel had told me everything I needed to know. However, I do tend to be an evil bastard in games that give the player choice, and if AJ wasn't there, I would be more inclined to walk away and let him suffer. When Clem actually got down to killing him, the player was presented with 2 dialogue choices. She could either tell AJ to watch him be put out of his misery, or tell him not to watch. Now, this is a moment that particularly stood out to me due to the parallels found between this scene and when Mercer died back in Season 2. I remember my Clem being told that she didn't have to watch Kenny cave Mercer's head in with a hammer, however I said that I wanted to watch him die, to which Clem coldly watched Kenny go to town. It's interesting then that as a young Clem I wanted to see a man be killed, however when playing an older Clem I told AJ not to watch the very same thing that I requested to watch myself in the past. Even more interesting is the fact that AJ reacted in the exact same manner that my Clem did, by replying that he wanted to see it happen. In a way, I guess I'm glad he did, as he needs to be strong, but I also felt the need to protect him, and I was a bit sad that he made the same choice that I did as Clem a couple of seasons previous. The relationship between Clem and AJ, or rather the player and AJ, is something I think the writers have nailed throughout this season, and thankfully, despite the flaws found elsewhere in this episode, this is an aspect it still excels at. I do find it a bit weird though, with this being the 3rd episode of the season and the 19th episode overall in this series, messages keep popping up on the screen quoting phrases such as, "AJ looks for guidance in this world for you." Yeah, I've kind of worked that out by now, you don't need to keep telling me. It's only a minor complaint, but I don't think anyone is playing this episode as their first ever entry into the Walking Dead game, so these tutorial messages are a bit unnecessary. And this isn't the only issue I have with the more video gamey aspects of the episode, as I also feel that the hidden collectibles, as well as some of the requirements to unlock trophies or achievements, which were clearly designed to add replay value to this season, can at times cause the player to lose all sense of immersion. Let's use the moment when Clem meets up with James, who needs the to find his walker mask as an example. James, being an ex-whisperer, doesn't like seeing walkers harmed and begs the player not to kill any en route to finding his mask. Now quite frankly, I've seen, read and played enough Walking Dead to know that anyone who believes that walkers are people is utterly deluded. I don't give a shit about walker lives and I wouldn't think twice about killing them. However, in this instance I made sure I got through the entire sequence without killing one walker. And why did I spare the undead, you ask? Well, I didn't do it for James. Instead, I did it because, being someone who's played video games for years, I guessed there would be a trophy for getting through this section without downing any walkers. And surprise surprise, there was. Whilst I may have gotten a trophy, I felt kind of shitty afterwards because I chose to spare the walkers, not because it was something that I agreed with, not even because it felt like something that my Clementine would do, but instead I did it to get a virtual meaningless reward on my PSN profile. The stats at the end of the game showed that 94% of players spared the walkers during this segment, and I think the majority of those who did it for the same reason as me. Bear in mind that I died a good few times attempting this, so it's not an easy thing to do. However, I think that the majority of players knew there was a trophy locked behind this challenge, which kind of sucks as it means players aren't really making the choices they want to. I mean, sure, you could say, well, no one's forcing you to do it, but I don't think that players should be rewarded with trophies for choosing one decision over the other. The collectibles are another aspect which, whilst good in theory, I don't really think should be in the game. I managed to get 4 out of 6 this episode, and that was with me looking in every nook and cranny I could find, even when it didn't really feel appropriate for Clem to be doing so. Take the sequence aboard the boat at the end of the episode in which Clem is supposed to be stealthily sneaking around trying to find her friends. Well, not my Clem. Instead, she was wasting her time going backwards and running around in circles, trying to look for something to take back home with her to put on her shelf. Clem, what are you doing? Your friends are about to be tortured and you're worrying about finding something to put next to your bloody Etch-a-Sketch. This should have been a nerve-wracking sequence, but instead I was more worried about the game progressing forward and locking me out of finding a certain collectible than I was finding my friends. Now I know this isn't the only Telltale game to have collectibles. The Wolf Among Us had them, and collectibles have been in place since the start of this season of The Walking Dead, but nowhere has it been more apparent to me how badly trophies and collectibles can completely destroy a game's immersion than it was this episode. Anyway, I spoke about the ex-whisperer James a moment ago, and whilst I thought he was a pretty cool character last time around, he really started to grate on me this time, to the point where I ended up finding him really irritating come the end credit. There's a segment in which Clem walks through a barn of walkers wearing walker skin in order to try and get used to being among them, and also because James hoped that being among them would change Clem's opinion on them. To be honest, this scene just fell completely flat for me. We've seen Herschel share his belief that walkers are people on the TV show. It's also been covered in Fear, and I'm sure it's probably come up in the comics at some point as well. So hearing James talk about this again felt a bit dull. Also, James trying to convince me that the walkers are anything but monsters just because they turned to face a bloody wind chime that was making some noise doesn't sit with me. I get that it was quite a beautiful scene with them all looking up towards the sky with somber music playing in the background, but at the end of the day, the walkers are still monsters who would kill Clem without a second thought as soon as she took her mask off. So no, James, you're not changing my mind. James might have not been able to change my mind, however he changed his like a flip of the switch after Clem exited the barn. Initially he said to her that he still wouldn't help direct a herd to Lily's boat because too many walkers would die, before then changing his mind 5 seconds later. This change of heart didn't feel earned. I think it would have made more sense if Clem decided to go it alone on the boat, only for him to turn up to save the day walkers in tow with a mask that Clem could wear to blend in. Yes, this option might have been cliche, but I don't think it made sense for him to be swayed so easily by Clem. Finally, the last thing that really tipped me over the edge with James is when during the final sequence he decided to turn into an Asian Morgan, rattling on about there being another way and how killing is bad, blah blah blah. I know that killing is bad, alright, but it always annoys me when people in The Walking Dead think they can get through life without killing anyone, because you can't. Granted, you don't have to kill everyone, but some people you just have to kill. Which is why I have to say I am genuinely surprised that 58% of players told AJ to spare Lily. What's wrong with you people? If you played Season 1, you'll know that she either killed Doug or Carly. She's killed some of the kids at the school, she cut out Lucy's tongue in my playthrough, and she tried to kill Clem on top of the boat. Why let her live? She only surrenders when she knows she's beaten, at which point James, stupidly says that she isn't a threat anymore and to let her go. Seriously, is he that naive? She's too dangerous to be kept alive, just like Gareth and the cannibals in the Walking Dead TV show. Of course, now that Lily has no other option, she's going to say that she will leave everyone alone, but come on, anyone who believes her is a gullible fool. And even if she does change, I don't think she deserves to live anyway. Of course, that's just my opinion, but like I said a moment ago, I was really shocked by how many of you told AJ to spare her. Maybe you just didn't want a kid killing someone, but I actually think it's good that my AJ, unlike 10, can kill someone as nasty as Lily. But hey, we all have different ideas on how to raise him, which is one of the game's major strengths. Overall, I did enjoy the final sequence on the boat, especially the run up to the dock whilst hiding amongst the undead. With the machine guns on the boat raining down bullets, it felt a bit like an undead D-Day landing. It was certainly one of the best set pieces from the episode, even if I did die many times when attempting it. However, I will say that when on the boat, it did seem a bit weird that Clem could stun enemies rather than kill them, because I don't really see the point of sparing someone when you're trying to sneak a bomb on board. Yeah, don't worry, I won't kill you, I'll just shoot you in the leg. Oh, by the way, you're going to get blown up in 10 minutes. Have a nice day, bye. I think the biggest issue that I had with this episode was its pacing. It took me nearly 2.5 hours to play through, and to be honest, it felt like I played it for a lot longer. There just seems to be a lot of padding in this instalment. You have to scope out the boat before you attack it, which isn't the most exciting sequence in the world, and I also found the party at the school to be very tedious and dull. And there's a Clem and Lee sequence thrown in for nostalgia reasons, which I didn't really like either. Like anyone who's played through The Walking Dead from the start, I love Lee as a character, and I'll admit I do still miss him, but it kind of feels like overkill with how often he keeps popping up. It used to be a nice surprise when Clem had a vision or a dream about Lee, but I feel it's been overdone now, and this dream sequence felt a bit cheap this time around. I will say though, Lee's character model looked great, as did young Clem's, and it's impressive that Melissa Hutchinson can pull off voicing young Clem 1 minute with her squeaky high voice and then the older Clem a minute later. There's not really much else I want to cover in this review apart from a few outstanding random points. So first off, I did find it a bit weird that Clem knew exactly where to find James. I thought he just disappeared last episode, but I might be forgetting something as it's been a while since I played it. Secondly, I did laugh at some of the jokes this time around. AJ calling Clem old made me chuckle and like the kid even more, as did his confusion when Willie mentioned masturbation. Lastly, although it was pretty grim seeing Lewis without his tongue, the poor kid was absolutely petrified of Lily, and it really made her seem like a very scary villain, which I rather liked. Overall, if I were judging this episode purely on how it presents the relationship between AJ and Clem, it would get a perfect review, as it still manages to make me care for AJ in a way that not many games make me care for its younger characters. Unfortunately, this dynamic is sandwiched in between what is quite a dragged out affair. It just takes way too long for this episode to get going. I'm not asking for 2 hours of all-out action because 2 hours of QTEs doesn't make for a great game. However, I found that a lot of what I was doing as Clementine was pretty dull, and in fact many times I found myself hoping the episode had nearly finished, which is quite a sad thing to say given the fact this episode was close to never being made in the first place. Regardless of all of this, I'm still very much looking forward to the finale, and I hope it can deliver a satisfying send-off for Clementine. Hopefully it will be more like the first 2 episodes of this season rather than this one. So there you have it, that's my review of episode 3 of the final season of The Walking Dead. Please let me know your thoughts below. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you not like it? Did you like some of it and not the rest? Whatever your opinion is, let me know. Apologies for the dodgy jumper that I'm wearing today, but it's really cold and I don't care because I need to get warm. Obviously not as cold as you lot in the US. I hope you're all safe and well. I've only just saw something on the news yesterday about the weather because someone commented saying it was really cold, and I looked it up and I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. People, like, their house is freezing, and there's a video of some lady outside and her hair freezes, and well, yeah, just stay safe, all my American subscribers. Look after yourself and keep warm. And on that note, take care. Goodbye. I don't know what else to say. I'm being a bit weird now, so I'll end the video. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.